good, everybody? Final Boss here, back again with another series, our How to Win with Steve series. This is a brand new series with Steve that we're doing in Tekken 8, where we're diving more into the intricacies of a match that you would play either online or offline. We're really diving in on how to win, on how to approach the fight. First starting from the opening of the fight, then progressing throughout the matches when you're at advantage, then when you're at disadvantage, when you're at the wall, how to recover when you're in Okazumi state. That's what I want to go for with this How to Win series, so that by the end of this series, you'll understand how the typical flow of a match with Steve goes, as well as how to take that data that you gain from the opponent that you're fighting, and you'll be able to use that to your advantage in the next round to hopefully sweep them the entire set. So it's literally taking in the match and being able to process the data, being able to categorize your opponent and process the data faster than them so that you can pull a victory. This is How to Win with Steve. Let's go. As of the recording of this video, Heihachi has just dropped, and already we have several players that have already reached God of Destruction rank against other players of high rank in our advanced level, and are able to take victory over them with only 1 day of the character. So we're going to dive deep and we're going to discover why, and then hopefully this will be able to carry over to your other characters. So this is definitely still more Steve focused, but you'll be able to take these fundamental lessons and carry them over to any of the cast here in Tekken 8. And it has almost nothing to do with knowing every minute detail about the character on an advanced level. People haven't had time to really dive deep into Heihachi. Yes, there are players that are catching things that we're not used to. We're not used to a lot of Heihachi's tools. The fact that certain players are able to understand what the game plan is and able to play to that advantage, and being able to win multiple times in a row, so much so as to hit the highest ranked in the game, which is currently God of Destruction. We want to go after that. We want to go after the core of what that is, so we can win with any character. So here we go here. Premise 1. The round will start at neutral for 60 seconds. At mostly equal distance. Once we get round start, we are about 2 character distances away from each other, and this is pretty consistent, even though characters in this game like to move a lot. Like you notice Steve is bouncing around, dragging off in his idle stances, kind of moving to the side there, but for the most part this is consistent as soon as the match begins. So we have a consistent set of rules here. Knowing that we will be the exact same distance, we can prep to see which moves will reach the opponent first, and we can kind of get an idea of how the opponent plays, so we can spot out any patterns. And with Steve, spotting out patterns is very important. It's very indicative of his game plan, very mission critical for him. Premise 2. Tekken 8 is an offensively rewarding game. Terms like active defense, plus frames, power crush, high crush, low crush, heat burst, sabaki parries, and Yoshimitsu flash, just to name a few. These are all button based ways of taking back your turn, quote unquote. These are all active frame buttons that actually are pressed and can interact with your opponent's hurt box in a way that, even though it's vulnerable in one way, it shuts down other options. Take Power Crush, for example. If I do this, even though it starts at 28 active startup frames, however, it completely shuts down, or for the most part shuts down, most highs and mids that are not reversal break. It stops everything but reversal break attacks and lows. But as far as high and mids, it shuts them down. Keep that in mind. There are certain buttons in the game that are considered higher risk because they have higher startup, but that shut down other options. They kind of call this active defense now in Tekken 8. Premise 3. There are over 100 ways to start a match. That amount increases exponentially after the first punch, kick, throw, sword, or laser is thrown. Every character has an expansive move list. I'm gonna take a look at my character Steve. If we look at just purely the numbers of entries on his move list, there are 149. Granted, Steve is a stance heavy character, but even if we were to look in other characters, like right now we're looking at Dragunov, his count is 118. There's so many ways to start, yet there's a methodology of selecting an option where it will cover multiple scenarios, which is ideally what we're aiming for in the average match. We want to increase our odds of interrupting the opponent so that we can have our pit bull like offense. We can begin chipping away at the opponent's health within the 60 seconds. I remember in my initial days of playing Tekken Tag 2 and Tekken 6, the earlier Tekkens or prior generations, I would often struggle trying to figure out what exactly I was supposed to do in a match. There's normally, I guess, with a character with a fundamental toolkit with a down forward 2 launcher, you would just be poking and essentially playing footsies. You would throw out a launcher like down forward 2 or something, it would hit and you would do a combo, and this is how you would get a majority of your damage. However, you look at a character like Steve, and he does not have a down forward 2 launcher. He has a traditional down forward 1 that is 13 frames. He also has of course, everybody has access to a jab. He has access to a really good counter hit jab with 1-2-1 counter hit jab string. Very fast, does a lot of damage. Point being is that because he does not have a straight up quick access launcher or a launch punish, he does not gain as much damage off of the opponent by traditional means. So the way he actually gains damage is by chipping away at your health, by hitting you with several counter hitting jab strings and overall being faster than you at advantage, as well as using stance based mix-ups and stance cancels to open your opponent up, like duck canceling and then perhaps going either from full crouch down forward 1 or while standing 1, for example. It's a low or a mid that could come out there, so it's like a micro mix-up, and you would put your opponent in several of these micro mix-ups, chipping away at your opponent until they make a mistake that you can capitalize on with a big back 1 13 frame counter hit launcher. Does a ton of damage, as we all know. This is why people fear Steve. Keep those anti-Steve players up at night. But anyway, I would often wonder what to do with the character, and I slowly started to figure out that that was the key. It's just figuring out how your opponent plays and stuffing them as much as possible. Before in Tekken 7, it was more like you could just wait around for a mistake, hit them with counter hit jabs, and then back one them. They'll kind of walk into it. In this game, a lot more often that your opponent can snowball an offense on you, so it's usually more beneficial that you are on the offense chipping away their health with several fast pokes that are also mixed in with stance mix-ups until you get the big counter hit landed because they're trying to take their turn back. This is the ideal case. But I found myself playing at a higher level faster than I expected after I happened upon a few key value drivers. I wish I had this kind of video as a resource. That's really why I'm making this video, is like I wish I had this kind of video for me so I could see it and kind of see how Steve is supposed to operate and get that pace that I'm supposed to play at so I can be successful with the character. But yes, I wish I had this video as a resource earlier in my Tekken career, how much time I would have saved. That is the purpose of this series. Welcome to the How to Win with Steve series. How to Win with Steve, the opening Gambit, a Tekken Theory video.